Hey there everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at market failure, IGCSE economics. Let's start. Market failure terminology. Market failure defined. In a free market, the price mechanism determines the most efficient allocation of scarce resources in response to the competing wants and needs in the marketplace. Scarce resources are the factors of production, and we know the factors of production are land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Free markets often work very well, but then they also have their own disadvantages. However, there is sometimes a less than optimum allocation of resources from the point of view of the society. This is called market failure. Sometimes there is an overprovision of goods or services which are harmful. These are called demerit goods, and therefore an overallocation of these resources used to make these goods or services. Example, cigarettes. Sometimes there's under-provision of the goods or services which are beneficial, public goods and merit goods, and therefore an under-allocation of these resources used to make these goods or services. Example, schools. Sometimes the market causes a lack of equity, which is inequality. The rich gets richer and the poor gets relatively poorer. Sometimes environmental damage occurs during the production or consumption of a good or services. In each of these cases, from society's point of view, there is a lack of efficiency in the allocation of resources, private, social, and external costs. Externalities occur when there is an external impact on a third party not involved in an economic transaction between the buyer and seller, which is a third party. These impacts can be positive or negative and are often used to as spillover effects. These impacts can be on the production side of the market or on the consumption side of the market. External costs occur when the social costs of an economic transaction are greater than the private cost. A private cost for the producer, consumer, or government is what they actually pay to produce or consume a good. Example, a customer could pay $9 for a McDonald's meal. An external cost is the damage not factored in the market transaction. Example, the consumer throws the McDonald's packaging onto the street and the government has to hire cleaners to collect the litter. The social cost includes both the private cost and the cost to society. It is better reflection of the true cost of an economic transaction. Social cost is basically the private cost plus the external cost. I'm not sure, but I think the social cost has to be paid by the government. Okay, I'm not really sure. I'll look into it and let you know. Private, social, and external benefits. So what we looked over here were cost. Now we'll look at benefits. External benefits occur when the society benefits of an economic transaction are greater than the private benefits. A private benefit for a consumer, government, or a producer is what they actually gain from producing or consuming a service or a good. Example, a bee farm gains the private benefit of the income from selling their honey. An external benefit will be that it is the benefit not factored into the market transaction. Example, the bees from the bee farm pollinate the nearby apple orchard. The social benefit includes both the private benefit and the external benefit to the society. It is a better reflection of the true benefit of an economic transaction. Social benefit is private benefit plus external benefit. Let's move on to the causes and consequences of market failure. Market failure occurs when the free market activity results in a less than optimum allocation of resources from the point of view of society, as mentioned earlier. The causes and consequences of market failure. Causes could be demerit goods. These are goods which have harmful effects on consumer or society. They are often addictive. Example, gambling, alcohol, drugs, sugary foods and drinks. Consequences, they are overprovided in the market and the consumption of often creates external costs. Governments often have to regulate these goods in such a way that they raise the prices and or limit the quantities consumed. Merit goods. These are goods that are beneficial to society, but consumers underconsume them as they do not fully recognize the private or external benefit. Example, vaccination, education, electric cars. They are underprovided in the market and their consumption generates both private and external benefits. Governments often have to subsidize these goods in order to lower the price or increase their quantity consumed. Public good. Coming? Public good. Public goods are beneficial to society but would be underprovided by a free market as there is little opportunity for sellers to make profits from providing these goods and services as they are non-excludable and non-rivalrous in consumption. Good examples include national defense, parks, libraries, and lighthouses. Non-excludability refers to the inability of private firms to exclude certain customers from using their products. In effect, the price mechanism cannot be used to execute customers' example street lighting. Non-rivalry. It refers to the inability of the product to be used up, so there is no competitive rivalry in consumption to drive up prices and generate profits for firms. Therefore, governments will have to provide these beneficial goods themselves, and so they are called public goods. Abuse of monopoly powers. Development of a monopoly market is a natural outcome of a market system. Firms seek to eliminate competition by buying out competitors and increasing their ownership of factors of production. With less competition, firms can raise prices, reduce the choice available to customers, or limit the supply. The outcome is that goods and services are purposely underprovided in order to raise prices and profits. Governments often intervene to ensure that there is healthy competition in markets and sufficient provision of goods and services. Factor immobility. It occurs when it is difficult for factors of production to move or switch between different users or locations. The two main types of factor immobility are geographical and occupational mobility of labor. Factor immobility results in an inefficient allocation of resources in the market. Governments often implement programs to reduce the factor immobility to raise production and output. Whew, that's a lot. External costs and benefits. They occur when there is an external cost or benefit on a third party not involved in an economic transaction. These impacts can be positive or negative. The price mechanism in a free market ignores these externalities. If these external costs or benefits were acknowledged, then the price and output in the market would be different. Consequences: a positive externality of consumption, a sorry, a positive externality of production, a negative externality of consumption, and a negative externality of production. You all can read the text below it, which will help you. Pause the video and read it. Then let's continue. Last but not the least, intervention to addressing market failure. Four of the most common methods to address market failure in markets are indirect taxation, subsidies, maximum prices, and minimum prices. Additional methods of intervention include regulation, nationalization, privatization, and state provision of public goods. What are these maximum what are these maximum prices, minimum prices? Let's start with maximum price. Maximum price is set by the government below the existing free market equilibrium, and sellers cannot legally sell the goods or services at a higher price. Governments will often use maximum prices in order to help their consumers. Sometimes they are used for long periods of time, example, housing rental markets. Other times they are short-term solutions to unusual increase, example, petrol. So this diagram, let me zoom in. Is a diagrammatic representation. This is the price and this is the quantity. This is the maximum price and this is the equilibrium price. This is our supply curve and this is our demand curve. So as the maximum price is set, this is the quantity supplied, quantity demanded, quantity supplied, equilibrium quantity. This space in the middle is our excess demand. Retail here, here, and here. The maximum price sits below the free market (PE) and creates a condition of excess demand or shortage. So everything below the market equilibrium point market equilibrium point. I call it MEP. Will be shortage. Shortage. Remember that? It will be shortage. Sorry for that bad handwriting. Okay, yes. Oh, yeah. Diagram analysis. The initial market equilibrium, it has PEQE. Yeah, PEQE. The maximum price is imposed at Pmax. The lower price reduces the incentives to supply, and there is a contraction in QS from QE to QS. The lower prices increase the incentives to consume, and there's an extension in QD from QE to QD. This creates a condition of excess demand, QS to QD. So whenever they say excess demand, remember it's shortage. Shortage. These are some of the advantages and disadvantages of market maximum prices. You all should pause the video and read it. I don't want to waste too much time, or I don't want to increase the length of the video too much. That's why I will encourage you all to pause and read it again. Minimum prices. A minimum price is set by the government above the existing free market equilibrium price, and sellers cannot legally sell the goods at a lower price. Governments will often use minimum prices in order to help producers or to decrease consumption of a demerit good, example alcohol or cigarettes. Let's look at it again. This will be our price. This will be our minimum price. This will be our demand, and then this is our supply. So this should be the quantity demanded. This is the equilibrium point. This is our equilibrium point. Quantity supplied. So this place here has a name. Can't remember the name. Let me just check and then let you all know. Aha, surplus, surplus. Yes. This part. Come, let me change the color so that you understand better. Anything below the MEP is shortage, and anything above was surplus. Surplus and shortage. Let's move on. Let me just clean this. Boom. Tick. Yep. The imposition of a minimum price above the free market price creates a condition of excess supply surplus. Okay, again, I'll suggest you all pause the video and read the advantages and disadvantages of minimum prices in product markets. Minimum prices in labor markets. Minimum prices are also used in labor market to protect workers from wage exploitation. These are called national minimum wages. Wages are like salaries based per hour. A minimum national minimum wage (NMW) is a legally imposed wage level that employers must pay their workers. It is set above the market rate. The minimum wage per hour varies based on age. Let's move on. N Okay, this is the diagram. So let me change the color. Let's take a different color. Let's go with orange. So this is our wage rates per hour, and this is our quantity of. Okay, they took an example quantity of truck drivers. So this will be the minimum wage that an employer must pay its employee. Here we know it's surplus, and this is our equilibrium quantity, equilibrium wage, that is here. So this is our quantity demand and quantity supply, surplus over here. MNW is imposed above the market rate at W. Okay, yes, yeah, I just told you all this. Let's move on. Okay, these are advantages and disadvantage of minimum wage in labor markets. Pause the video, read them. Indirect taxation. An indirect tax is paid on the consumption of goods and services. It is only paid if consumers make a purchase. It is usually levied by the government on demerit goods to reduce the QD and to raise the government revenue. Government revenue is used to fund government provision of goods and services, example education. Indirect taxes are levied by the government on producers. This is why the supply share shifts. Remember this. Producers and consumers each pay a share incidence of the tax. This is just a diagram. I take uh, and the diagram. So this is our price. This is our quantity, demand, and supply. Now the indirect tax is what causes a shift in the supply. So at the price, at, at the what do you say? The Q1 here. Okay, never mind. This is just read. I'm not really sure of what to say about that one. The impact of an indirect tax is split between the consumers A and the producer B. Analysis: the government places a specific tax on a demerit good. Okay. The supply curve shifts left from S1 to S2 yes by the amount of the tax. The price the consumer pays has increased from P1 before the tax to P2 after the tax. The price the producer sorry receives has decreased from P1 before the tax to P3 after the tax. The government receives tax revenue P2 minus P3 times Q2. The consumer incidence share of the tax is equal to area A P2 minus P1 times Q2. The producer incidence share of the tax is equal to area B P1 minus P3 times X Q2. The QD in this market has decreased from Q1 to Q2. If the decrease in QD is significant enough, it may force producers to lay off some of the workers. As you may have seen, as lots of companies are laying off their workers, it could be due to indirect taxation. Okay, I'll suggest you all read advantages and disadvantages as well. These are some exam tips. Read them, pause the video, read them. They will help you in your exams, hopefully. Producer subsidies. It's it's a per unit amount of money given to a firm by the government to increase production, to increase the production of a merit good. Okay, obviously, subsidies aren't given to production of demerit goods. They are only given to the provision of a merit good. The way a subsidy is provided is shared between consumers and producers by the PED of the product, price elasticity of the product. Producers keep some of the subsidies and pass the rest to the consumer in form of lower prices. Here this is just a bit opposite. Where this goes here, this comes here. It's like the opposite of indirect taxation. Yes, I suggest you read the advantages and disadvantages as well. Okay, let me just decrease this. Okay, other government policy measures to address market failure. One is the state's provision of public goods, privatization and nationalization, and regulations. Okay, let me just minimize this. Just give me a second. Okay, I'm not going to waste too much time on this due to the video limit, but then pause the video, read each of these, and hopefully it will help you in your exams. Make sure to like, share, and comment on the video. Subscribe as well if you haven't so far, and see you in the next video. Hope it helped.